Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Good morning. Welcome once again to Kahului Hongwanji Buddhist Temple's Sunday YouTube service. So today's service is for January 24th, 2021. And today we are observing Ho'onko. Ho'onko is the yearly memorial service of appreciation for our founder and teacher Shinran Shonin. Ho'onko means a gathering for expressing our debt of gratitude. So at this time we express our happiness for the kindness of our teacher Shinran, who shared his understanding of the Dharma with us. Through Shinran's life and teaching, we are able to hear and receive the Nembutsu teaching, the teaching of boundless compassion. Because of Amida's great compassion, Shinran's teaching has been kept alive for our benefit. Today is also our monthly family gratitude remembrance, through which we offer our expressions of gratitude to all of those departed family members and friends who have a memorial service or remembrance during this month of January, as well as any other family or friends that you would like to remember. So today's service will be very simple. We will have the Vandana Tisarana just like usual, and followed by the Gasho to Amida, the chanting of the Gasho to Amida. However, in between those two, between the Vandana and the Gasho, we will have the aspiration for Ho'onko and for the family remembrance. And you see today also we have our altar specially decorated for this more you might say significant observance today. So we will 6 times a year we have what we call our major services, so we always decorate the altar for those important services. So Ho'onko is probably the most important one in our tradition. So following the chanting of the sutra, we have, as usual, the golden chain of love, the recitation of the golden chain of love, and then I will share a Dharma message with you. After that, we'll have the metta, or the loving kindness meditation, and then the singing of the Nembutsu. Then we'll have some closing words, and we'll bring our service to an end. So thank you so much for joining together with us. Wherever you are, joining virtually, as they say, together, so that we can enjoy our time, enjoy being able to hear the Dharma and express our appreciation for the profoundly significant life that we're able to live each moment. So thank you for being here, and let's now begin our service. Please join me in Gasho as we recite the Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Namo Amida Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Homage to him, the exalted one, the enlightened one, the supremely awakened one. Bhutang saranang gacchami, dhammang saranang gacchami, sanghang saranang gacchami. For guidance, I go to the Sangha. For guidance. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Today, Kahului Hongwanji Sangha is gathered together to honor the memory of our good friend and revered teacher, Shinran Shonin, on the occasion of this Ho'onko memorial service. Through his teachings and by the example of his life, let us aspire to awaken to the great compassionate light of Amida Buddha, which shines equally on all beings. May we realize Amida's boundless wisdom in our lives and grow in kindness and love toward other beings as we live each day embraced by the working of the Buddha's compassionate vow. Let us especially honor Shinran's memory by learning what he taught and seeking a true understanding of the teaching he shared with us. Today we also remember all those friends and loved ones whose memorial services are remembered in this month, as well as other friends and loved ones we wish to honor and remember. As we remember Shinran Shonin and our departed loved ones, let us seek to repay our debt of gratitude to all of them for the measureless gift of life we have received. And let us do this by listening to the Buddhist teachings and by reflecting deeply upon them. In this way, as we encounter Amida's wisdom in our lives, may we be able to manifest Amida's compassion to all beings in all that we do. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Show to Amida, trees and grasses and flowers all grow in great compassion. This light shines throughout the world. I show to Amida, flowers bloom and flowers fall. From the seed sprout new flowers. This is the truth unchanging. I show to Amida. Springtime brings the happy birds Their songs all praise Amida. I join them in Nembutsu. I gasho to Amida. When I call Amida's name, it's Amida calling me. Buddha's voice, my voice are one. I gasho to Amida. When I'm lonely, I recite Namo Amida Butsu. Then I feel great compassion. I gasho to Amida. Nembutsu in work and play, every day with Amida, every moment filled with light. I gasho to Amida. Remember the golden chain, kindness to all living things. I will follow this teaching. I gasho to Amida. In the clear bright morning sun, in the fading light of day, in the darkness of the night, I gasho to Amida. Namo Amida Butsu. I live in great compassion. This great power guides my life. I gasho to Amida. Namandabu. 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 The virtue of Amida's vow is shared equally by all, together attaining awakened mind. We are born in the land of peace. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda. Golden Chain of Love. I am a link in Amida Buddha's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I must keep my link bright and strong. I will try to be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. I will try to think pure and beautiful thoughts, to say pure and beautiful words, and to do pure and beautiful deeds, knowing that on what I do now depends not only my happiness or unhappiness, but also that of others. May every link in Amida Buddha's golden chain of love become bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. At this time, I'd like to share some thoughts about the Dharma with you. So will you please join me in Gasho as I read one of the poems of Shinran Shonin. it is taught concerning Namo Amida Butsu that its virtue is like the vast waters of the ocean. Having myself received that pure good, I direct it equally to all sentient beings. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Well, thank you again for being here, joining with us during this for this Honko service, memorial service for Shinran Shonin. And this is one of the most important observances in our Shin Buddhist tradition, because it gives us the opportunity to express our appreciation to Shinran, or for Shinran really, who was able to articulate the teaching of Nembutsu in such a profound way. So the Nembutsu teaching has been around for, going way back to ancient India, but Shinran's sort of experience, personal experience and articulation and perspective on the Nembutsu way, the Nembutsu path, is very, very deep and profound, and has given so much happiness to so many people. And so because of Shinran, because of his teaching, we're able to live with the realization that the boundless compassion of life, which we call Amida Buddha, embraces all of us just as we are. This teaching awakens us to realize the oneness of life and also the impermanence of life, which really go together, and allows us to live a life of self-reflection, insight, and true gratitude for each unrepeatable moment of our life. However, when we think about what Shinran's teaching, we do have to realize that the world we live in today is quite different from the world in which Shinran lived and had his experiences. And that doesn't mean that his teaching is any less relevant. Far from it. Maybe Shinran's teaching is even more relevant now than it ever was. But the ignorance and self-centeredness that have always been a part of human life, I think, have become much more prevalent now than in the past. We have made many improvements in the world in certain areas of life that they call that progress, and we understand some things today much better than most people did even 50 years ago. Scientifically and things like that. However, we have also progressed tremendously in our desires for things. I think these have really increased in our pursuit of power and wealth, and in the growth of our arrogance. If Shinran were here now, I think he would look around him and he would say that people of this age obviously know much more than people of his day, but that we have become much more calculating and devious as well. Also, the cost of our greed, anger, and ignorance has become much higher today than it was back then, and much more dangerous than it was back then, both in terms of the peace of the world and also our likelihood to destroy the natural environment that supports us and makes it possible for us to live in this world. So, we have much greater capacity now to cause wholesale destruction through our weapons, and also through our technology, which is burning fossil fuel, all those things, which is causing such havoc for the environment. So our foolishness, you might say, our foolish mind, our selfish mind, is much more dangerous today than it was in the 12th and 13th centuries when Shinran lived. So even though we might say we're a lot smart, we may be more knowledgeable, smarter in some ways, maybe not smarter, actually, just we know more things than they knew back in the 12th and 13th centuries, but we can also say that we may have a lot less wisdom than maybe people had then, or at least some people had then. But there's something crucially important to realize in the way we all live today, I think, which goes to the heart of what Buddhism is all about. Buddhism is the way of the Bodhisattva. The Bodhisattva path means the path to Buddhahood through aspiring for and seeking to attain the happiness of all beings. The Bodhisattva's path expresses the truth of interdependence. Interdependence means that since I am able to live only through the help of countless other beings, it is thus impossible for me to attain spiritual fulfillment so long as there are still suffering beings anywhere. Amida Buddha's primal vow is the essential example of that. Unless all beings are saved, Amida vows, I will not attain Buddhahood. I will not accept self-fulfillment until all beings attain fulfillment. So the opposite of that bodhisattva mind attitude is what we, in our secular path, we call this path of self-fulfillment, desire for self-fulfillment. So that is the way of life we mostly live. And the main characteristic of that way of life is that we rationalize the suffering that we cause others in the attainment of our own wishes and desires, and often just for the sake of attaining or achieving a comfortable life, more comfortable life. Now, there have been several parables about this reality, and one famous one in the book The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky, the great Russian writer. And more recently, there was a short story called The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas, written by the writer Ursula Le Guin. She passed away about 3 years ago, actually, January 22nd, 2018. And she was one of my favorite writers, and she's really one of the great modern American writers and thinkers. And a lot of her thinking was influenced by Buddhism, which I think is apparent in this story, The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas. So let me tell you the plot of this story, just so you understand the main point. The story begins with a description of the first day of summer in this place called Omelas, which is a shimmering city of unbelievable happiness and delight. In Omelas, the summer solstice is celebrated with a glorious festival and a race featuring children on horseback. The vibrant festival atmosphere, however, seems actually to be an everyday characteristic of this blissful community, whose citizens, though they don't have really advanced technology, are very intelligent and sophisticated and cultured. Omelas has no kings, soldiers, priests, or slaves. The specific setup of the society is not described in the story, but whatever the system is, it's supposed to, we're led to believe it has all the best virtues that a society can have. So it has true equality, complete justice, and fairness for all of its citizens. No poverty, no violence. Hence, it is a place of joy and happiness for all. So this is not like our society, although it's sometimes like we are ideal of what we, or sometimes what we say, this is the society we're working for. It's going to be completely fair and happy for everyone. But the narrator of this story tells us that because he's described this Omelas as being so wonderful, so admirable a place, he's a little afraid that you might not be convinced that this paradise really truly exists. So the narrator tells us one final element about the city. It's one single atrocity. It's one darkness at the core, and that atrocity is that this wonderful place, its constant state of bliss and happiness and serenity and prosperity and splendor depends that there be one single unfortunate child who must be kept in perpetual pain and filth and darkness and misery. Now, once the citizens of Omelas are old enough to know the truth, according to this story, most, though initially shocked and disgusted, ultimately accept that this one terrible injustice, which secures the happiness of the city, of all these people, and the majority of people have a wonderful life because of this. They sort of accept it. Well, it's terrible, but it's only one child. I can accept it. It's not it's not the end of the world. That's how most people respond. However, the narrator tells us, in every generation there are a few citizens of Omelas, both young and old, who silently walk away from the city, and no one knows where they go. The story ends with these words: each alone, they go west or north toward the mountains. They go on. They leave Omelas. They walk ahead into the darkness, and they do not come back. The place they go toward is a place even less imaginable to most of us than the city of happiness. I cannot describe it at all. It is possible that it does not exist. But they seem to know where they are going, the ones who walk away from Omelas. So, I suppose that in this story, the children whose suffering make possible the happy life of this society are, represent all the children who were forced to work in factories in the 19th and early 20th century, and whose suffering was often justified, especially by the factory owners, as necessary to the development of progress. At the same time, many people in the 19th and 20th centuries were realizing, for example, Charles Dickens, with horror, that the prosperity of modern society was based on the suffering of helpless people who were working in terrible conditions in factories and mills and mines and so on, in order to create wealth and thus, we might call it happiness for others. But the real point of the story, the ones who walk away from Omelas, is that this always happens in one way or another, no matter how good people think their society is. Most societies in human history have had slavery, forms of brutality, conquest, and so on, empires, and so on. And so, yet we always justify it. Most people justify it. We always think that we're somehow virtuous, no matter what we do. Say, well, whatever is under the surface, it's not as bad as people say, and it's worth the cost because look at the wonderful things we have, or the wonderful society we've created. But if you look under the surface, we and see all those people being exploited and harmed in some way, or not just people, but all animals as well, all living beings being harmed or exploited for the profit and benefit of the few. I think there's always some people who question this, who say this is not right. It's not worth the price. It's not worth the price if even one person has to suffer this terrible kind of suffering in order that everyone else can have all this happiness. So one innocent person, So and this is true today as well, I think. For example, we all have all these smartphones and computers and all these devices and, so much technology today, cars and all the different kinds of cars we have and so on. And they do provide many benefits to us. It's true. They're wonderful things. Just for instance, we're able to have this service because of all that technology. We're able to have this come into your home or onto your phone or however you're watching it because of all this technology. And if the people making all these items, this technology, were all treated decently and equally and paid well enough to have a decent life, and that would be no problem, right? However, if they were paid a lot, what we would expect to be paid to work and build these devices, manufacture these things, I think they would cost a whole lot more than they do. We're used to having things be very inexpensive nowadays, and nowadays, almost everything that we use is made in countries where people can be grossly underpaid and mistreated. And why? So that we can get good prices. Even now, as we're beginning to experience a lot of problems in our society, I think a lot of that is unraveling. I think maybe the karmic conditions are changing, and maybe our actions we will not be able to carry on indefinitely that way. But nowadays we are beginning to experience many problems that seem to surprise us. But and of course there is the pandemic, COVID-19, and also a lot of anger and disappointment from people out there and expressing anger in different ways. And so we're having a very uncertain time. But even with all that, of course, most of us are still very privileged, and we must admit that we continue to benefit tremendously from the unseen labor of others who are far away and invisible to us. So at the beginning, I read to you one of Shinran's poems. I said, the poem, I'll read it again. It is taught concerning Namo Amida Butsu that its virtue is like the vast waters of the ocean. Having myself received that pure good, I direct it equally to all sentient beings. Namo Amida Butsu. And I think this poem, these words, really express the mind of the Bodhisattva. The Bodhisattva says, I have received pure good. That's how the Bodhisattva sees the life that we always receive, as pure good. And my response is not to keep it to myself, but to share it equally with all beings. The disciple of Shakyamuni Buddha, that's all of us who call ourselves Buddhists, we're a disciple of Shakyamuni Buddha. But Buddhists have always understood that to truly attain happiness and peace, we must leave or renounce the world of selfishness, greed, hatred, and ignorance. Ignorance means, by the way, to ignore inconvenient truths. That's what it means. Ignorance doesn't mean I just don't know. It means I'm ignoring things I don't want to hear, right? So that's the ones who walk away from Omelas. It's the same idea. In a sense, we're not abandoning the world, but we're walking away from accepting the benefits of something we know is causing harm to others, because we want even the least person, the least being, equally to receive boundless compassion and kindness. So, you can leave the world the way the ancient people did, by becoming monks and living the life in the forest and relying on people to give you food and so on, as they did then. However, that's very hard to do nowadays. But there are many other ways to leave. Actually, just living our ordinary life, and this is really the way of the Nembutsu, living our ordinary life, but making better choices is one way that's one option that's open to us. We can open our minds and admit and accept the harm that we are causing others by the way we live, and find out what children and other helpless people are being harmed by our choices, so that we can have so that we can have the things we want, right? Our comforts and our toys and so on. Or through the pollution, global warming, or other consequences of the modern lifestyle. So we have to know about that, right? We can be aware of it. And we can do that. We can decide what's really important and essential in life, and then naturally, I think, be able to make better choices. The things we buy, for example, our choices that whether they create happiness for others, help others instead of causing suffering. In many ways, I think how we can be active in our communities, in our churches and temples and so on, to be available and present to the suffering that surround us, the suffering that are around us even in our local community. So in that way, we can start to follow the Bodhisattva way just naturally and practice and have our Buddhist practice be for the sake of all beings, not just for ourselves. And like the people at the end of that story, the ones who walk away from Omelas, we too may come to know where we are truly going. So thank you very much for listening this morning, and I hope that all of you will continue to stay well and safe during this time of pandemic, and really reflect on the preciousness of life. That's what's really important. So thank you very much for listening, and please join me in Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 May all beings be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May I be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to me. May I live in peace and harmony. May my family be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May my teachers be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May my friends be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May strangers be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May my enemies be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May all beings be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo. Well, thank you so much for joining with us today for our online service. It's unfortunate that we weren't able to gather in person, as we have been trying to do for the past several months on these fourth Sundays, when we always do have our family remembrance and also our major services when they come up. But because of the worsening condition of the COVID, we decided to put it off for this month. So we'll see how things go for next month. But so grateful that we are able to have some way of joining together and listening to the Dharma together and reflecting and just spending some time really thinking about our lives and what's really important. Next week we will have our regular YouTube service, so please stay tuned for that. And just to let you know, for heads up, in April we would normally have here in Maui, the Central Maui Hanamatsuri gathering, which is always a lot of fun. We have a service and games and entertainment and food, and normally it's most of the Buddhist churches in this temples, in this part of Maui, in Central Maui. However, last year, because of COVID beginning, we decided we weren't able to do it. We had to cancel, and this year we have decided we cannot have the live event, the actual in-person event either. But we decided that now that we've become more experienced with all this sort of online stuff, we will probably be having the Hanamatsuri event through Zoom. So more information about that as time goes by, as the weeks go by, I'll fill you in. It'll be like a 1-hour program with a service and with a little bit of information, Dharma message, of course, and some perhaps some games, things like that. Some kind of something that will be a lot of fun. So keep that in mind. First Sunday in April. So there may be some other announcements on the scrolling text following at the very end of this video. So please check that out. And once again, thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you. Let's recite the Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida.